you ever walk away from a conversation with someone and feel like you've just been hit by a truck? Not physically, emotionally. You walk in confident, maybe even happy, and 10 minutes later, you're second guessing yourself, wondering if you're selfish, too sensitive, or just plain wrong. That, my friend, is not a coincidence. That is what it feels like to be emotionally manipulated by a narcissist. That guilt you're carrying around, it's not yours. It's a weapon they handed you. Let's get something straight. Narcissists are not these charming, confident people the world often paints them to be. No, they are experts, masters at twisting reality. They don't want a relationship, they want control, and one of their most effective tools to gain and maintain that control is guilt. Because guilt makes you compliant. Guilt makes you second guess your needs, your voice, your truth. It starts small, a little jab here, a backhanded compliment there. You say no to something because you're setting a boundary, and suddenly they're cold, distant, disappointed, and you feel awful. You start questioning, was I too harsh? Should I have been more understanding? That guilt creeps in. That's how they do it. They condition you to associate your needs, your voice, your strength with shame. Now, why does it work? Because you care, you're compassionate, you want to do the right thing, and that's exactly what makes you a target. Your kindness, your empathy, your desire to keep the peace, they take those beautiful traits and flip them on you like a switch. They'll say things like, I guess I'm just the villain now, huh? Or after everything I've done for you, and boom, there it is, guilt. And once that guilt settles in, you're no longer operating from a place of strength. You're operating from fear, from shame, from insecurity, and they've got you exactly where they want you. Listen to me, you are not too much. You are not too emotional. You are not selfish for having boundaries, and you are not guilty for wanting respect. The narcissist will never say, I hurt you and I'm sorry. Instead, they'll say, you're being too sensitive, or you always take things the wrong way. See the pattern? They shift the blame, always. And the moment you start feeling guilty for things that don't even make sense, that's the moment you have to wake up. So what do? You get clear on what's yours and what's theirs. You stop owning their behavior. You recognize the guilt is not a reflection of your wrongdoing. It's a manipulation tactic. And you stand in your truth even if your voice shakes, because here's the truth: real love, real respect, real connection. It doesn't require you to feel guilty all the time. It doesn't make you question your worth. You don't need to fix the narcissist. You don't need to prove anything to them. You just need to protect your peace. And the first step, start seeing guilt for what it is, not a signal that you've done something wrong, but often a sign that you're finally doing something right. Take your power back. You've had it all along. Let's talk about guilt. Not the kind of guilt you feel when you know deep down you made a mistake. I'm talking about the kind of guilt that creeps in even when you haven't done anything wrong. You speak up for yourself, and suddenly you're second guessing everything you just said. You cancel plans to take care of your mental health, and now you're riddled with shame. That kind of guilt, that is not your guilt. That is guilt implanted in you by a narcissist. See, guilt is not just an emotion. In the hands of a narcissist, it becomes a weapon. And the scariest part is that you don't even realize it's being used against you until you're deep in the game. 1 minute you're confident, clear, and connected to your truth. The next you're shrinking, apologizing, trying to fix something you never even broke. That's not a coincidence. That's manipulation. That's power dynamics. That's psychological warfare disguised as a relationship. The moment a narcissist sees that you care, like really care, they zero in on it. Your compassion, your desire to do the right thing, your willingness to reflect, to grow, to take accountability. Those are your superpowers. But to a narcissist, they're just soft spots. They don't see empathy and think, wow, what a beautiful soul. No. They see a lever they can pull, a switch they can flip, a doorway into your self-worth, and what do? They start using guilt as a remote control. They hit play every time they want to steer your behavior. Let me give you a reality check. If someone makes you feel guilty for expressing a boundary, they are not someone who respects you. They are someone who is trying to control you. Guilt becomes a smoke bomb they throw when they feel your power rising. It clouds your judgment, fogs your self-trust, and gets you to do one thing: doubt yourself. You want to know how this works? Let's break it down. You say no to something because it doesn't feel right. They don't respond with curiosity or respect. Instead, they say things like, wow, after everything I've done for you, or you've changed. Now you're thinking, wait, am I being ungrateful? Am I the problem? That's the trap. That's how they win. They flip the script, make your healthy action feel like a betrayal, and then sit back while you apologize for doing something brave. The truth is their version of love is conditional, their acceptance is transactional, and their guilt trips, those are the tolls they charge when you try to get free. So how do you break this cycle? You recognize guilt for what it is, not a moral compass, but a manipulation tactic. You pause, you breathe. You ask yourself, did I do something harmful? Or am I just being made to feel like I did? 9 times out of 10, that guilt is not your intuition speaking, it's their control echoing. Here's the deal, you're allowed to protect your energy, you're allowed to have needs. You're allowed to walk away, and you sure as hell don't need to feel guilty for doing so. When guilt shows up, look at who's benefiting from it. Because if it's not you, it doesn't belong to you. Give it back, not with anger, not with explanation, just with clarity, because your kindness is not a weakness. It's a strength, and it's time to stop letting it be weaponized against you. Let's get real about something that a lot of people don't want to admit. Narcissists train you to question yourself. This doesn't happen overnight. It's not a big dramatic moment. No, it's way more subtle than that. It's like a slow drip of doubt that eventually pools into a flood of self-confusion. And here's the thing that's going to blow your mind. They do it on purpose. Not by accident. Not because they're misunderstood. Because it works. They make you doubt yourself, your instincts, your memories, your reactions, your tone of voice, everything. They take your strength, your clarity, your knowing, and they slowly chip away at it until you're standing in front of the mirror wondering, am I the problem? Let me tell you something. If you're constantly asking yourself that question around someone, that's a huge red flag. Now, I'm not talking about taking responsibility. Growth requires us to own our mistakes and look at our part. But that's not what this is. This is a toxic feedback loop where no matter what you do, it's wrong. And it starts so quietly. Maybe it's a little comment like, you're too sensitive, or you're always overreacting. You bring up something that hurt you, and instead of being met with empathy, they flip it. I can't believe you're attacking me right now. I was just trying to help. That's how they plant the seed. And when they see you pause, when they see you hesitate, they water that seed with more manipulation. Suddenly, you're not just second guessing your emotions. You're third and fourth guessing your reality. They create this environment where your voice starts to feel foreign, where every time you speak up, they twist your words, exaggerate your tone, or play the victim so convincingly that you start to question your sanity. And let me tell you something, it's not because you're broken. It's because they're threatened. They can't control someone who's confident. They can't dominate someone who trusts themselves, so they attack the source, your self-trust. The reason this works so well on empaths, people pleasers, and high achievers is because we're already wired to consider other people's perspectives. We want to understand. We want to do the right thing. We want to make it work. So we make excuses. We rationalize. We think, maybe I am being dramatic. Maybe I should just let it go. But guess what? That doubt, that voice in your head that's questioning your judgment, it wasn't always there. It didn't come from you. It was fed to you slowly, consistently, strategically. And the only way to take your power back is to see it, call it out, say it out loud. This isn't my doubt. This was taught to me. That one sentence can be the key to unlocking your clarity. Because when you begin to understand how you were trained to distrust yourself, you can start retraining your brain to believe in yourself again. You'll start recognizing manipulation when it shows up in a smile or a sigh. You'll stop apologizing for having boundaries. You'll feel that quiet voice of truth getting louder. And that's when the game changes. That's when you step out of the fog. That's when you come back home to yourself. You are not the problem. You never were. You've just been living in a reality that was designed to confuse you. But you're waking up now. And the more you trust that voice inside of you, the one they tried to silence, the more unstoppable you become. Here's what nobody tells you about narcissists. They are masters at making you feel responsible for their emotions. They've got this unbelievable ability to flip the script so fast, you don't even realize it's happening. 1 second, you're expressing a concern, setting a boundary, or just simply having a feeling, and the next you're comforting them. Sound familiar? Let me walk you through this, because if this is happening in your life right now, you need to understand one critical truth. It is not your job to manage someone else's emotional reactions. I don't care if it's your partner, your parent, your boss, or someone you've known since childhood. When a narcissist gets uncomfortable, they deflect the discomfort onto you. They hijack your emotions and suddenly you're the villain, and it happens so subtly, so skillfully, that you begin to accept it as normal. Let's say you tell them, "It hurt me when you ignored my message." Now, a healthy person might say, "I'm sorry, I didn't realize that. Thanks for telling me." But a narcissist, oh no, they'll say something like, "Wow, so now I can't even have a minute to myself without being accused? You're so demanding. I can't ever do anything right with you. Can I?" And boom, you're on the defense. You're no longer talking about your hurt feelings. Now you're trying to explain that you're not demanding, not controlling, not crazy. That's how they shift the emotional labor onto you. And here's the twisted part. You pick it up. You carry it. You apologize. You feel guilty for having a completely valid emotion. And that's exactly where they want you off balance, insecure, questioning yourself, and managing their feelings instead of your own. Now, why does this work so well? Because if you're an empath or a deeply caring person, you're already wired to want harmony. You're already trained to look inward and reflect on your behavior. Narcissists exploit that. They weaponize your empathy. Every time you reflect on what you could have done differently, they don't meet you halfway. They take a mile. They condition you to believe that their reactions are your responsibility, that if you were just nicer, quieter, more understanding, they wouldn't explode. But let me tell you something powerful right now. You are not responsible for the emotional regulation of another adult. You are not their therapist. You are not their emotional sponge. And the minute you start believing you are, you lose yourself. And the deeper you go into this pattern, the harder it is to even see it. That's the scary part. You start living in a state of constant self-correction. Did I say that wrong? Did I overreact? Am I being selfish? You're so used to managing their responses that you forget how to trust your own. But guess what? You can reclaim that. You can start untangling the manipulation and learn to let people carry their own feelings. It starts with recognizing the pattern. It starts with noticing the moment when your valid concern gets flipped into an accusation against you. And instead of defending yourself, pause, breathe, and tell yourself the truth. I am not responsible for how they choose to react. That's the moment your healing begins. That's the moment you start owning your power. Because the more emotional responsibility you hand back to the narcissist, the less they can control you. And when you stop playing the role they cast you in, you finally step into the role you were meant to play, the powerful, grounded, self-assured version of you that doesn't carry what was never yours to hold. Here's the brutal truth that most people don't want to say out loud. Narcissists manipulate guilt like it's a finely tuned instrument. And the moment you start standing up for yourself, they crank that guilt up like a deafening siren. They know exactly how to use your strengths against you, your empathy, your compassion, your desire to avoid conflict, and twist them until you're questioning everything about yourself. And one of the most insidious ways they do this is through emotional blackmail. Let's talk about what that actually looks like. Because it doesn't show up wearing a sign that says, "Hey, I'm emotional blackmail." No, it's subtle, it's slick, it's disguised as love, concern, or even self-pity. It sounds like, "After everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me?" Or, "I guess I just don't matter to you anymore." Or the real kicker, "If you really loved me, you did." And just like that, you're trapped. They've taken a perfectly normal boundary, a perfectly reasonable need, or even just a moment where you needed space, and turned it into a crime against them. You begin to maybe I was too harsh. Maybe I should have worded that differently. Maybe I owe them an apology. That maybe is the hook. That doubt is the cage. Because the moment you start feeling responsible for their reaction, they've got you exactly where they want you, second guessing yourself while they stay in control. And here's the kicker, they don't even have to raise their voice, they don't have to throw things or yell. In fact, the most dangerous emotional blackmailers are calm, quiet, and calculated. They withdraw, they sulk. They give you the silent treatment, and you, because you care, because you're wired to connect and fix, you chase, you apologize. You bend over backwards to make them feel better, and that's how they win. This is not love. This is not emotional intimacy. This is control. What they're doing is turning your need for peace into a weapon. They know you want harmony, so they create tension, and then offer the only way out, compliance. That's the blackmail. They make your comfort conditional on your obedience. And you think, "I'll just give in this one time so we can stop fighting." But it's never one time. Because once they know that guilt works, they will use it every time. And let me say this with all the love and fire in my heart, it's not your fault. This happens to strong, smart, loving people all the time. The problem is we were taught to believe that love means self-sacrifice, that keeping the peace is more important than speaking our truth. But here's what I want you to understand. Your needs matter, your feelings are valid, and anyone who makes you feel guilty for expressing them is not loving you, they're manipulating you. Emotional blackmail thrives in silence and self-doubt. But the moment you start calling it what it is, it loses power. The moment you stop explaining, stop defending, and start standing in your truth, everything shifts. You don't have to scream, you don't have to argue, you just have to be clear. I'm not responsible for how you feel about my boundary. That's it. And then hold the line. Because the truth is, love without respect is not love. It's control in disguise. And you, my friend, are not here to be controlled. You are here to live freely, boldly, and truthfully. And no one, not even the most manipulative narcissist, gets to take that away from you. Let's get something straight. Your emotions are not a crime scene. But when you're dealing with a narcissist, they'll make you feel like every time you express yourself, every time you cry, every time you show frustration, or even just set a simple boundary, you're the bad guy. They flip the script so fast you start questioning your own intentions. And this is the root of one of the most toxic patterns narcissists use to keep you trapped in a cycle of guilt, emotional invalidation. Here's how it works. You say something like, "It hurt me when you said that." And what do? Do they say, "I'm sorry, I didn't realize"? No. Instead, they come back with something like, "You're too sensitive," or "You're overreacting," or "I was just joking." That last one is a classic. "I was just joking." As if your hurt doesn't matter, as if you're the one making a mountain out of a molehill. It's psychological warfare, and you don't even realize it's happening because it starts small. One dismissive comment here, one guilt trip there. But over time, you start doubting everything. Was it really a big deal? Am I too emotional? Maybe I do take things the wrong way. And that right there is the hook. They've gotten you to turn against yourself. That's their ultimate goal. Because if they can make you feel like your feelings are the problem, they never have to take responsibility for anything. Let's break this down. When a narcissist invalidates your emotions, what they're really doing is training you not to trust yourself. They want you so disconnected from your own inner compass that you can't tell what's real anymore. That way, they stay in control. They decide what's acceptable, what's normal, what's allowed in the relationship, and your job becomes managing their emotions instead of honoring your own. And you want to know the wildest part? This often happens when you're at your most vulnerable. When you're exhausted, stressed, hurt, or just trying to connect, you go to them because you want reassurance or understanding, and they slam the door in your face emotionally, then blame you for standing at the door in the first place. That's not just cruel, it's calculated. Now, let me tell you what that kind of chronic invalidation does to your brain. It chips away at your confidence, your ability to speak up, your ability to even know what you're feeling. And the more they do it, the more you internalize it. You start invalidating yourself, cutting yourself off at the knees before you even say what you need to say. And that, my friend, is how guilt becomes your constant companion, not because you're guilty, but because you've been taught to feel guilty every time you speak your truth. But you know what the antidote to that is? Radical self-validation, and I mean radical. That means learning to sit with your emotions and say, you know what, this matters. I matter. What I'm feeling is real and valid and worthy of respect. That means recognizing when someone's twisting your words and calmly saying, no, that's not what I meant, and I'm allowed to feel the way I feel. You've got to become your own anchor, your own safe space, your own advocate. Because if you wait for a narcissist to validate you, you'll wait forever. But when you start standing in your truth, even if your voice shakes, even if your heart is racing, you take back your power. Every time you honor what you feel without apologizing for it, you weaken their grip on your mind. So stop asking for permission to feel. Stop shrinking yourself to fit their fragile ego. You are not too sensitive. You are not too much. You are exactly enough. And anyone who makes you feel guilty for feeling is not someone who deserves your energy, your time, or your love. Period. Here's the truth. You were never the problem. The guilt, the confusion, the second guessing, that was never yours to carry.